everybody, Trolley Bull here, the troll you can trust, back with another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, featuring a Survivor Spotlight of 5-star Maggie, Something to Fear, and 6-star Maggie, Road to Survival 3rd Edition. Let's talk about Maggie. We will run down the 5-star and 6-star skill set, survivor stats, and those stats comparison to other tanks, plus indomitable specialist tanks, weapon mods for offense and defense, survival road, and team synergy. Let's talk about Maggie. So in the course of you being in a brand new, newer, or newish region, or you just don't have enough Benedict Ascendurances or Ascendance medals to take Maggie to a 6-star, I will be talking about the uses you can have for Maggie and her 5-star epicness. Maggie is a fast 5-star medic made to be a strong pillar to your team in creating high sustain along with raising your teammates from the dead. Except this guy. Because she got impaired by Negan, and even if she wasn't impaired, I doubt anybody would want this walking around scaring the shit out of kids. Her Adrenaline Rush is Triage, a reviving and healing skill made for turning the tides in battle. Triage is one of the best supporting Adrenaline Rushes out there, but a weakness to it is it needs 75 AP, meaning bringing 2 large bonus to AP when attacking holds very little merit on her, as you're looking at a 3rd turn AR usage if she is commanded. What is very efficient with Maggie is having the minimum be 1 large AP when attacking and 1 huge AP when attacking to make Maggie get the heal off on the 2nd turn with a command, and she will bring whoever died on the 1st turn right back up for them to potentially pop off their AR too, giving you 2 ARs going off on the 2nd turn, and if we do not have a command, then it would be 1 turn later being the 3rd turn. These numbers are if Maggie is not attacked, so we can look at this at the bare minimum and what you can get away with for AP gained while attacking, which you have more control over than AP gained while defending. Maggie's specialist skill is Command. Command is useful in every aspect of this game, allowing Adrenaline Russians to be used 1 turn earlier than they normally would be used. It is very important for Maggie to stay alive, as she'll be a pillar to your team with Command, and the sustain she gives will keep your team in the fight longer to pick up the win. If we look at her stats, Adrenaline Rush, and her specialist skill, we can see there's nothing special about her in terms of damage output. So we will be building her tanky with the threat coming from AP generation, and her commanding your more threatening damage dealing and crowd controlling survivors. Defense on her weapon is a must, as we can already see her attack stat is nothing special, and her Adrenaline Rush does 0 damage, and the specialist skill she has just jack diddly for her damage output. And since she has command, we will be wasting an offensive damage dealing attack from her, so any sort of brute force basic attack damage stat would not be the best synergy here. The second stat I would go with is AP gained when attacking to get her Adrenaline Rush going as soon as possible for the revive and the heal on either the 2nd or 3rd turn, depending if you brought an extra command. Since her basic attacks are not that threatening and her biggest threat, besides command, will be her Adrenaline Rush, so having AP gained while attacking will give you that extra pressure. So there's 2 choices I would recommend for the final stat on the weapon. The first one being absolute defense, and that's to deter anybody from focusing her first and saving Adrenaline Russians to take her out, letting her do as she pleases early or the whole fight. Your opponent can take a risky chance and get very bad luck, in which their team will slowly fall apart. If you missed out on absolute defense and you're not getting lucky with it all, I'd recommend going for health. This stat isn't bad if you want to deter somebody from taking her out first, as you will have the defense and the health buffs, which will allow you to live through the 1st turn. If the enemy does happen to focus her first, the rest of your team should be able to punish them, and if you have AP gained when taking damage leadership skill, they could potentially set her Adrenaline off the 2nd turn if you brought an extra command, setting your team up for success. These are the specialist skills I would try to fit in with your team comps with Maggie. This is just purely looking at this from a specialist skill standpoint and nothing else. First up is Guardian. The majority of 5-stars you will come across will have fast or very fast Adrenaline Rushes, so any way for us to make our enemy controlled by the computer or the player to lose an attack randomly, or we can make the enemy player sacrifice one of their tunes to be an all-time Guardian cleanser, is a strat worth pursuing. The second specialist skill I would recommend bringing is another command alongside Maggie. This strat is made for if they try to take her out first and you have good defense coming from your weapon and leadership ability, she can be commanded on the 2nd turn, if she is still alive, to pop off the AR, making your enemy suffer for making that choice. Last on the list is Neutralized. Where the majority of 5-stars have very fast Adrenaline Rushes, we need a way to have some sort of damage control. Neutralize brings this to your team, making sure you can prevent any Adrenaline Rushes that would destroy your team for that turn. Meaning if 2 Adrenaline Rushes are going to hit you, they both would slaughter your team together, we could make sure only one of them goes off. so we can actually survive to the next turn to recover from it, such as using Maggie's Adrenaline Rush. And then we can take the damage from the second Adrenaline Rush on the enemy team. Thus, we're still alive and we win. Most team comps, I would highly recommend you always have a command and a neutralize in it. Based on your other 3 survivors you choose to bring with Maggie, these survivors will make decent, if not excellent, leaders for your team alongside Maggie. When raiding with Maggie against 5-star team grade enemies, you want to make sure she lives long enough to the second turn, and in the worst case scenario for Maggie, we can always swipe to defend to live through the first turn. Turn 2 is where the magic happens, in which you are able to start using fast and very fast adrenaline rushes to demolish your enemy. Bringing a second command along with Maggie will get 2 adrenaline rushes off on the second turn if your team mainly consists of fast or very fast adrenaline rushes. Also, depending on if Maggie is threatened to be killed during the first turn, another command could give you the flexibility needed to get her adrenaline rush off on the second turn, negating the damage your enemies did on the first turn. During this time, you want to keep an eye out for any decapitate and revive survivors on the enemy team. You want to take one of them out early, as a decapitate will slowly dwindle your team since your team is relying on revives to win, and the heal from Maggie isn't a defense buff, so your team is still potentially killable. The revive will need to die early or be kept impaired by your neutralizer, as you do not want to waste any turns to kill somebody just to have that person you considered a high threat to be brought back to life again. Anything after the first turn, you will want to command another teammate to kill or crowd control other threats on the enemy team, or you can use Maggie's command on your neutralizer to impair 2 people for a turn. This should create enough openings for you to beat mostly anyone that is around the same team grade. Teams that do not overpower you in weapons and are not a direct counter to your team should also bring success in your direction, but if this is flipped around, you will be in a severe uphill battle. If you were to face a Maggie, keep in mind the offensive power of your team and look at the defensive stats of the Maggie you are facing. You should ask yourself this question: can I take her out on the first turn? If the answer is no, then look for somebody else that will give you a yes for that answer. If I don't know is the answer, then you need to science a little bit to make a judgment call so you can get a better idea of your damage output, so each turn you make is less likely a mistake or a wasted turn. Tap and hold the character to see your attack, and then tap and hold the enemy so you can see their defense. After raiding long enough and eyeballing these stats, you will get an idea of the damage you can do. If you're on a faction and or care about your win-loss ratio, a good way to get an idea for your damage output for when it actually matters is to do a lot of friendly duels with your faction. Another counter when you're facing Maggie would be to bring a decapitate survivor with you. On top of it, a healing reduction survivor will also create an issue with Maggie, and if you were to bring both of those to face a Maggie, she will be nothing more than a body that can use command, basically rendering her almost useless. In Survival Road, 5-star Maggie will shine. If you're able to bring her where yellow isn't in a disadvantageous position against people, her heal and command will let you unravel the majority of teams you will face. If you have anyone with crit buffers or camouflage adrenaline rushes, they can be commanded so you can cut through all the walker levels with ease. If you were to bring leaderships that would synergize well with Maggie on Survival Road, I would recommend everything from the rating, and plus one more here, and that would be Earl. If you have to bring Maggie for whatever reason and to where greens are the enemy team, Earl would be good as he comes with a 45 defense against green. For a pure 5-star team, 2 people that synergize very well is Maggie and Survival Road Ezekiel. They are an amazing combo and allows for healing to be gained every turn after the first turn, along with offense and defense buffs and a revive, and this all comes from just 2 people. Maggie is a fast tank who excels in disrupting and crippling her enemies while at the same time defending one of her allies with Pain Split, letting us know she will synergize well with having another tanky role survivor on your team. She has the ability to heal herself and another teammate for 25% of her max health, giving her not only a tank role but a small support role as well. Her special skill is Indomitable, making continuous attacks against her result in less damage. We crown these indomitable individuals as Maggie, Boobs of Steel, Shiva, Fur of Iron, and Abraham, Bitch Nuts. To get the quickest result in using her Adrenaline Rush in which she is not attacked and we gain AP purely from attacking, we will want a minimum of 2 large bonuses to AP when attacking so that we can get her Adrenaline Rush to be used on the second turn with a command. If you bring only 1 bonus to AP, then no matter what, unless she gets finger blasted early, you will be using her AR on the third turn with a command. We're going to go into deep comparison between Maggie and the other Indomitable tanks. Attack-wise, Maggie sits on the lower end of the spectrum, so her scaling will not be the greatest in terms of damage. Her health and defense ranks decent and needs a boost in one or more of these areas to be an effective tank, especially if you're lacking any sort of healing in your team. Since her main role isn't to do massive damage, instead disrupting and crippling your enemies, she can be effective in your team, letting you even beat survivors only available in the Premier Wheel. Defense is strong as we want to get our taunting adrenaline rush off before dying so she doesn't become a worthless tank. AP when attacking, so we can have her adrenaline rush going off on the second turn with a command. As for the final special stat on your weapon, absolute defense is always a good call, so making anybody she taunts use any basic attacks against her renders them useless, which is ideal, and if an attack does go through, -40 attack will neuter the damage enough to where it tickles. Since Maggie has a taunt, you can have her play a more supportive role and heal your team. Since she does -40 attack to her taunted enemies with Pain Split, they apply a lot less pressure so she can take the hits to heal others. So 8% bonus AP to the team. If your team mainly consists of 76 Adrenaline Rush survivors, you lack a command, and you have 2 large bonus to AP, giving you 36 AP per attack, you're looking at a 4th turn Adrenaline Rush. Applying bonus AP will make your entire team, if they gain 36 AP in attack, will have their adrenaline rushes going off on the 3rd turn. I see this as more of a risk-reward, as after everybody uses their first round of adrenaline rushes, it pretty much loses its merit, but it should give you enough offensive early pressure to crumble the enemy team. So a list of specialist skills that I feel would be very synergetic to Maggie. We're going to start off with G2. So while Maggie will be pain splitting the highest HP survivor on your team, we're also going to want the G2 to take care of the lowest HP survivors of your team, making this whole entire team be well-rounded. So Command is next, and since Maggie has a 66 AR, it can crowd control 40% or more of the enemy team if she does get commanded, and we'll want to apply this pressure as soon as possible, especially if we ended up getting an absolute defense or a random heal modified weapon. So considering the majority of survivors out there do some sort of a taunt, impair, stun, or confuse, we want to actually bring a cutthroat. Since Maggie does taunt 2, that leaves us 2 people for cutthroats to do extra 30% increased damage, making 2 options for easier kills. Which leaves us with neutralize. This allows us to have more damage control in the scenario where we want to stop a specific AR, or if we come up short in killing somebody on the enemy team when we thought we were going to kill them. So when it comes to rating, we have options to bring with us in terms of leadership skills and team compositions. You can all use the leaders when 5-star Maggie was talked about, and the leaders that we're about to mention here. So the team comps that are being displayed range from heavy defense, offense, sustain, and burst. So try some of these out, test out their strengths and weaknesses. Ideally, we want to knock someone out on the 1st turn, and if we can't do that, we will attempt to take them out on the 2nd turn. If you foresee yourself unable by the end of your 2nd turn to kill someone, then make sure you have 2 forms of AP generation when attacking, so you can command Maggie to use her adrenaline rush on whoever you are attacking, if that enemy is going to use their adrenaline rush on the next turn. If Maggie is able to finish anyone off with her adrenaline rush, 2 others will be taunted, and we will not have to worry about the 2 taunted enemies' adrenaline rushes unless someone on the enemy team recovers their taunt. So if you do have a stun, taunt, impair, or confuse actives, make sure you use them to support your actions on that turn. If you're to face a Maggie, check her weapon modifiers and the level of her adrenaline rush. Check and make sure how many turns her taunt lasts, as some won't even level her adrenaline rush. If her taunt does last for 1 turn, then don't feel bad about not bringing a recovered taunt. But if you do have the intel and you know that her taunt does last for 2 turns, you might want to think about bringing a recovered taunt active survivor. Maybe 2 in case that one does happen to get taunted. If your team is green heavy, she will be an easy kill, and if you have any stun weapons, she will crumple. If you happen to not be green heavy, you can bring a 6-star blue Abraham with an impair and defending plus defense weapon, as yellows tend to make blues a higher priority for targeting, and since she does have a low base attack, we will not mind her getting a bonus trait damage against Abe. And since he's indomitable and he can heal himself, he should be able to hold his own to disrupt the yellows long enough to impair most of the enemy team, making winning easier. 6-star Maggie does amazing in survival road. Since she is a yellow with a taunting pain split adrenaline rush, we can use absolute defense or random heal to make her tanky and very disruptive to our enemy. We can use her taunt to put some damage control on our enemy if we are about to get bombarded by adrenaline rushes. The neutralized team in survival road is blue, so she'll come in handy for when, if not all, the majority of our team is impaired and we can use our active heal to keep them alive. The command team is also blue, and we can stop a lot of the damage from the enemy and can do a 2-person taunt, especially if the 2 enemies we taunt are command enemies. Her healing active will save your survivors from time to time, so you do not have to coin or use any drug kits to keep progressing in survival road. When you're also in a non-threatening part in survival road, you can use her active heal to get your team ready for the next stage of survival road. Leadership survivors, same as raiding. If you're going to go up against greens and you just have to bring Maggie, or you just really want to bring her for whatever reason, then take Earl as your leader with a 45% defense against greens, since 6 stars aren't even touching 45% yet. Maggie and Survival Road Zeke is also an amazing combo that allows brute force and self-sustain. So long as you can keep Survival Road Zeke alive, your team, odds are, should not fall.